A hand clamped over Grace's mouth from behind. She couldn't scream, couldn't breathe. Two men dragged her into the darkness of the hospital parking garage. This was how she would die. Alone. Forgotten. 50 feet from safety. Then a motorcycle exploded through the entrance. A massive biker slammed into her attackers. Bones cracked. Bodies dropped. He grabbed her face, forced her to look at him. Hell's Angels patches, blood on his knuckles, terror in his eyes. Shut up, or we both die tonight. Pretend I'm your father. Now. His eyes, blue, desperate. Why did they look so familiar? Before we continue, please subscribe to my channel and follow this story to the very end. Comment below which city you're watching from so I can see how far my story has traveled. Now back to the story. The footsteps behind Grace grew louder. She walked faster, her keys dug into her palm. 50 feet to her car. She could make it. 12-hour shift in the ER. 3 trauma cases. 1 death she couldn't prevent. All she wanted was her bed. Hey, nurse. Don't turn around. Don't stop. I said, hey. A hand grabbed her shoulder, spun her hard. 2 men. 1 tall with a scar splitting his cheek. 1 short, built like a tank eyes, dead as stones. Pretty thing like you shouldn't walk alone. The tall one smiled. No warmth in it. Grace's heart slammed against her ribs. What do you want? Answers. The short one stepped closer. His breath smelled like cigarettes and something sour. About your daddy. My father's dead. They laughed. Oh, sweetheart, the tall one said. If only that were true. The short one reached into his jacket. Grace stopped breathing. Then came the roar. A motorcycle exploded into the garage, headlight blazing, engine screaming. The bike skidded between Grace and the 2 men. The rider was off before it stopped moving. He was huge, leather jacket, patches everywhere, gray beard, hands like sledgehammers. Hell's Angels. Grace's mother had warned her about men like this since she could walk. He came straight at her. Grace couldn't move, couldn't scream, couldn't think. He leaned down. His lips brushed her ear. Shut up or we both die tonight. Pretend I'm your father. Now. His eyes met hers. Something in them made her nod. He spun to face the 2 men. His whole body changed. Shoulders squared, chin lifted. Voice dropped to a growl. Problem with my daughter, boys. The tall one's smile vanished. Your daughter Petrov said she was alone. Petrov was wrong. The biker took 1 step forward. Just 1. Both men stepped back. Now leave. Before I forget, I'm trying to be a better man. Victor won't like this. Victor can take it up with me personally. He knows where to find me. Silence. Thick. Heavy. Dangerous. The short one's hand was still in his jacket. The biker didn't blink. Fine. The tall one grabbed his partner's arm. Another time. They backed toward the black SUV. Doors slammed. Tires squealed. Gone. Grace's legs gave out. The biker caught her, held her up like she weighed nothing. Easy. Breathe. They're gone. Who are you? Grace's voice cracked. How do you know me? He pulled out a flip phone, pressed it into her shaking hands. 1 number saved. Anything feels wrong, you call, day or night. That's not an answer. My name's Hawk. His jaw tightened. I've been watching you your whole life, Grace, protecting you from the shadows. That's insane. I've never seen you before. Last time I saw you, you were 3 days old. His voice caught. Broke. Sleeping in your mama's arms. She made me promise to stay away, keep you safe by keeping my distance. Grace shook her head. I don't understand. Your father was my brother. The words hit like a punch. That's impossible. My father died before I was born. Construction accident. My mother told me, your mother lied. Hawk's eyes glistened. She lied to keep you alive. Danny Mitchell was my younger brother, my best friend, and he was murdered 3 days after you were born by the same people who just cornered you in this garage. Grace couldn't breathe. I don't believe you. You don't have to. Not yet. Hawk stepped back toward his bike. But those men will be back, and I won't always be there to stop them. Keep the phone, Grace. When you're ready for the truth, call me. Wait. Grace's voice was barely a whisper. Why now? Why, after 28 years? Hawk looked back, and in his eyes Grace saw something that terrified her more than the two men ever could. Fear. Because Viktor Petrov's son just got out of prison, and he's coming to finish what his father started. The motorcycle roared to life. Hawk disappeared into the night. Grace stood alone in the empty garage, clutching a burner phone, her entire world crumbling around her. She didn't sleep. Couldn't sleep. At 3 a.m, Grace sat at her kitchen table, staring at the flip phone like it might bite her. Her coffee had gone cold hours ago. Her hand still hadn't stopped shaking. Your father was my brother. Impossible. Her mother would never lie about something like that. But those men in the garage hadn't been looking for ancient history. They'd been looking for something current, something alive, something dangerous. At 5 a.m, Grace made a decision. She grabbed her keys and drove. Sunrise memory. Care was quiet at this hour. Grace signed in at the front desk, walked the familiar hallway, pushed open the familiar door. Her mother sat by the window, wrapped in a heavy cardigan, staring at nothing. Helen Mitchell, 63 years old, early onset Alzheimer's. Most days she didn't recognize her own daughter. Mom. Helen turned. Confusion clouded her eyes. Do I know you? Grace swallowed the grief. She'd learned to swallow it. It's Grace, Mom. Your daughter. Something flickered. Recognition. Memory. Grace. Helen's voice softened. My sweet girl, you look tired. I need to ask you something, Mom. Something important. Sit with me. Helen patted the chair beside her. You never visit anymore. I was here yesterday, Mom. Were you? Helen frowned. I don't remember. Grace sat, took her mother's fragile hand, felt the bones beneath paper-thin skin. Mom, last night a man approached me. Big man, motorcycle, leather jacket. Said his name was Hawk. Said he was my father's brother. The change was instant. Helen's face went white. Her hand clamped down on Grace's wrist with shocking strength. Her eyes, clouded moments ago, blazed with sudden clarity. No. Helen's voice was sharp, urgent, terrified. Stay away from him. Mom, stay away from that world, Grace. It killed your father. It will kill you, too. Grace's heart pounded. What world? What are you talking about? Promises. Helen's grip tightened until it hurt. I made him promise. Made him swear, stay away from you. Keep you clean, keep you safe. Made who promise? Hawk. Helen's voice dropped to a whisper. He should have stayed dead. They should all have stayed dead. I buried that life. I buried it. Mom, please, I need to know. The roses need water. Helen's eyes glazed over. The clarity vanished as quickly as it came. Have you watered the roses today? Mom? But she was gone. Retreated into whatever broken world her mind had created to escape the real one. Grace sat there for a long time, her mother's words echoing in her skull. It killed your father. It will kill you too. What the hell had her mother buried? Back home, Grace opened her laptop. Her fingers hesitated over the keyboard. Once she searched, there was no going back, no one knowing what she might find. She typed Danny Mitchell Hells Angels Chicago. The results loaded. Grace stopped breathing. Headlines. Dozens of them. All from 28 years ago. Hells Angels VP killed in warehouse explosion. Suspected mob hit claims biker's life. Petrov crime family linked to Mitchell murder. And a photograph that made Grace's blood turn to ice. A man. Young. Maybe 30. Dark hair. Strong jaw. Eyes that Grace knew better than her own reflection, because she saw them every morning in the mirror. Danny Ghost Mitchell. The caption read, 1965 to 1996. Grace clicked the first article. Read it. Clicked another. Read that too. Then another. And another. Her father hadn't died in a construction accident. Her father had been the vice president of the Chicago Hells Angels. Her father had been gathering evidence against a Russian crime boss named Sergei Petrov. Her father had been trying to get out, trying to protect his family, trying to give Grace and her mother a normal life. And someone had blown him up in a warehouse 3 days after Grace was born. She read that sentence 5 times. 3 days. Her father had held her for 3 days, loved her for 3 days, then died trying to save her. And her mother had erased him from existence, turned him into a construction accident. A sad story. A closed chapter. 28 years of lies. Grace grabbed the burner phone. Hawk answered on the first ring. Grace, tomorrow, sunrise, Lincoln Park, the fountain. Listen, you're going to tell me everything, Hawk, every single thing you know about my father, about Viktor Petrov, about why those men are after me. Her voice hardened. And then you're going to help me end this. Silence on the line. Then, Lincoln Park, the fountain. 6 a.m. He hung up. Grace set down the phone, stared at her father's photograph on the screen. I'm going to find out who killed you, she whispered. And I'm going to make them pay. Hawk was waiting when Grace arrived. No leather jacket today, just jeans and a flannel shirt. He looked smaller somehow, older, more human. You came, he said. Talk. They sat on a bench by the fountain. The sun crept over Lake Michigan, painting the sky orange and gold. Beautiful. Grace barely noticed. Your daddy was the best man I ever knew. Hawk's voice was rough. 5 years older than me. Took beatings from our old man so I wouldn't have to. Taught me to ride when I was 12. Brought me into the club when I turned 18. I don't want his biography. I want the truth. Hawk flinched, nodded. Fair enough. He took a breath. Danny was trying to change the club from inside. Steer us away from the worst stuff. Then he met your mama at some diner off I-94. Fell hard. Fell fast. By the time Helen figured out what he was, they were already in love. Hawk's jaw tightened. And she was pregnant with you. So he decided to get out. More than that. He decided to burn it all down on his way out. Hawk leaned forward. Sergei Petrov had been pushing into our territory for years. Drugs, guns, girls, bad stuff. Danny started gathering evidence, recording conversations, copying documents. He was going to hand everything to the FBI in exchange for witness protection. New names, new lives, somewhere far away where you and Helen could grow up safe. Grace's throat tightened. But someone found out. Sergei had a mole in the club. We never found out who. Hawk's voice dropped. 3 days after you were born, Danny went to a warehouse to grab the last piece of evidence he needed. He called me, asked me to back him up, and I... Hawk's face twisted with 28 years of guilt. I got drunk, passed out at some bar, woke up to the news that my brother was dead. Grace said nothing. By the time I got to the warehouse, there was nothing left, just fire, smoke, and Danny's body in the ashes. Hawk's eyes were wet. I was supposed to be there. I was supposed to protect him. And I failed. My mother knew all this. She was at the hospital with you when it happened. When I showed up to tell her, she wouldn't even look at me. Hawk wiped his eyes roughly. She said I was poison. Said if I ever came near you, the same people who killed Danny would come for you. She made me promise to disappear, yeah. And you just agreed. She was right, Grace. Sergei was still out there, still hunting for that evidence. The only way to keep you safe was to let you think none of this ever happened. So I grew up believing my father was some random guy who died in a construction accident, while you watched from the shadows. Every birthday, Hawk's voice cracked. Every graduation, every time you got hurt, or heartbroken, or lost, I was there. I just couldn't let you see me. Grace stood up, walked to the fountain, stared at the water. The evidence, she said. The evidence my father gathered. Where is it? Nobody knows. Danny hid it somewhere before he died. Sergei's been hunting for it for 28 years. Never found it. Grace turned. But Victor thinks I know where it is. Sergei's dead. Heart attack 6 years ago. Hawk stood to face her. His son Victor just got out of prison. Word is he's convinced that Danny gave Helen something before he died. Some clue about where the evidence is hidden. My mother has Alzheimer's. She can barely remember my name. Victor doesn't care. He'll tear you both apart looking for answers. Grace's phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen. A text from Sunrise Memory Care. Urgent security incident involving your mother. Please call immediately. The blood drained from Grace's face. What is it? Hawk asked. Grace was already running. The 15-minute drive took 9. Grace burst through the nursing home doors to find chaos. Staff shouting. Police taking statements. An orderly with a bloody bandage on his head. Where's my mother? Grace grabbed the nearest nurse. Room 14. She's okay. Security's with her. Grace sprinted down the hall. Hawk was right behind her. She slammed through the door. Helen sat in her wheelchair, staring out the window, humming softly to herself. A security guard stood by the door. He looked rattled. Mom. Grace knelt beside her. Mom, are you okay? Did they hurt you? Helen turned. For a moment, her eyes were clear. They asked about the bear. Grace froze. What bear? Your teddy bear. The one Danny gave you. Helen gripped Grace's hand. He said it would keep you safe. Said it was the most important thing he ever had. Grace's mind raced. Her old teddy bear, brown, worn, sitting in her childhood bedroom for as long as she could remember. Her mother never let her throw it away. Mom, where's the teddy bear now? The box, my memory box, in storage. Helen's grip tightened. Keep it safe, Grace. Promise me. Keep it safe. I promise, Mom. I promise. But Helen was already gone again. Eyes vacant, mind retreating. Grace stood. Her hands were shaking. Her heart was pounding. "Hawk?" "I heard." His face was grim. "Your mother's old storage unit. I know where it is." "Then we need to go, now, before Victor figures out the same thing." They ran. The storage facility was 20 minutes away. Grace drove like the devil was chasing her. Maybe he was. "Unit 47, she said, fumbling with her keys at the gate. "Third row, end of the hall." They found it. A small unit, maybe 10 by 10, packed with boxes, old furniture, memories of a life Grace barely remembered. "Help me look," Grace said, tearing open the nearest box. They searched, box after box, photos, clothes, books, dishes, the accumulated debris of her mother's former life. "Here." Hawk held up a wooden box, hand-painted with flowers. "Memory box." Grace grabbed it, opened it. Inside old letters, dried flowers, a faded concert ticket, and at the bottom, wrapped in tissue paper, a small brown teddy bear. Grace lifted it out. It was heavier than she expected. "There's something inside," she whispered. She found the seam in the bear's back, pulled it open, and there, nestled in the stuffing, was a USB drive. Grace held it up. Such a small thing, barely bigger than her thumb. 28 years, Hawk breathed. 28 years, and it was in a teddy bear the whole time. "My father died for this." Grace's voice was hollow. "My mother lost her mind protecting this, and I never knew it existed." A sound outside, tires on gravel, doors slamming. Hawk's head snapped toward the entrance. "We've got company." Grace shoved the USB into her pocket. "How did they find us so fast? Doesn't matter. We need to move." They ran for the back exit, pushed through the emergency door, and found themselves facing 4 men with guns. The leader stepped forward. Tall, blonde, ice blue eyes. "Grace Mitchell." His accent was thick. Russian. "My name is Viktor Petrov. I believe you have something that belongs to my family." Grace's hand went to her pocket, to the USB drive, to 28 years of secrets, to the last gift her father ever gave her. Behind her, Hawk tensed, ready to fight. In front of her, Victor smiled. "Give me the drive, Grace, and I promise your death will be quick." Grace's fingers closed around the small device. Her father had died protecting it. Her mother had lost her mind hiding it. And now Grace had to decide, give up everything her father sacrificed for, or die in this parking lot. Neither option was acceptable. "You want this drive?" Grace's voice didn't shake. She was surprised by that. "Then you're going to have to earn it." Victor's smile widened. "I was hoping you'd say that." He nodded to his men. They raised their guns, and Grace realized she had just made the biggest mistake of her life. The gun pressed cold against Grace's temple. She couldn't move, couldn't breathe, couldn't think. Victor circled her slowly, predator studying prey. "Your father was a problem for my family," he said. "A thorn in my father's side for years. Do you know what we do to thorns, Grace?" She didn't answer. "We rip them out, root and stem." Victor stopped in front of her. "Danny Mitchell died screaming in that warehouse, begging for his life, begging for yours. You're lying." "Am I?" Victor leaned closer. He called out your name at the end. Grace, over and over, like a prayer, like it would save him. Victor's lips curled. "It didn't." Something broke inside Grace. Something rebuilt itself, harder, colder, stronger. "My father gathered enough evidence to destroy your family," she said. "If you kill me, that evidence goes public. Everything. Every dirty deal, every murder, every bribe. It all comes out." Victor laughed. "Nice try. But we both know that drive is encrypted. Without the password, it's useless. Are you willing to bet your empire on that?" Victor's smile flickered, just for a second. But Grace saw it. Doubt. "The password dies with me," Grace said. "Kill me, and you'll never know what my father gathered. Never know who might have copies. Never know when it might surface to destroy everything you've built." Silence stretched between them. Victor studied her. Really studied her. "You're bluffing." "Maybe. Maybe not. Can you afford to find out?" Behind her, Hawk shifted. She felt his tension, his readiness to fight, his willingness to die. Victor's jaw tightened. "Take them both," he said finally. "We'll continue this conversation somewhere more private." His men moved forward, and that's when the first gunshot split the night. One of Victor's men dropped, blood spreading across his chest. Then another shot. Another man down. Victor spun, reaching for his weapon. A third shot hit him in the shoulder. He staggered back, cursing in Russian. "Move!" Hawk grabbed Grace's arm, dragging her toward a side door she hadn't noticed before. Behind them, more shots. Shouting. Chaos. They burst through the door into blinding darkness. A motorcycle sat waiting. Engine running. A figure in a Hell's Angels jacket straddled it. "Get on!" the rider shouted. "Both of you! Now!" Hawk shoved Grace onto the bike, climbed on behind her. The rider gunned the engine. They tore out of the parking lot as bullets pinged off the concrete behind them. Grace looked back, saw Victor stumbling out of the storage facility, clutching his bleeding shoulder, rage twisting his face. Then they turned a corner, and he was gone. Grace couldn't breathe, couldn't think. Her ears rang from the gunshots. Her heart hammered so hard she thought it might explode. "Who are you?" she shouted over the wind. The rider didn't answer, just kept driving. Faster, farther, away from Victor, away from death. 20 minutes later, they pulled into an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of Chicago. The rider killed the engine, pulled off the helmet. Grace's jaw dropped. It was a woman, late 40s, hard eyes, gray-streaked hair pulled back in a tight ponytail. A scar ran from her left ear to the corner of her mouth. "You're Danny's daughter." Not a question. "Who are you?" "Name's Viper." The woman swung off the bike. "I was your daddy's old lady before he met your mama." Hawk stepped forward. "Viper, I thought you were dead." "Lots of people think that. Keeps me alive." Viper looked at Grace with an intensity that made her uncomfortable. "You look just like him. Same eyes, same stubborn jaw. You knew my father, knew him." Viper's voice softened. "Girl, I loved him. Would have died for him." Her voice hardened. "Would have killed for him too. Still would." "How did you find us?" "Been watching you since Hawk made contact. Figured the Petrovs would make a move sooner or later." Viper spat on the ground. "Victor's dumber than his old man. Sergei would never have walked into a trap like that." "Trap?" Grace shook her head. "We were the ones trapped." "Were you?" Viper smiled grimly. "I had snipers on 3 rooftops. Victor walked right into my crosshairs. Only reason he's not dead is because I need information from him first." Hawk stared at her. "You've been planning this for 28 years. Viper's eyes burned. Sergei killed the only man I ever loved. His son thinks he can finish the job. She shook her head. Not while I'm breathing. Grace's mind raced. The USB drive. Victor wants it. I know. We have to get it back. That drive is the only evidence against the Petrov family. Viper laughed. A harsh, bitter sound. You think that's the only copy? Grace froze. What? Your daddy was smart, Grace. Smarter than anyone gave him credit for. You think he'd put everything on one drive and hope for the best? Viper shook her head. There are 3 copies. One in that teddy bear. One hidden somewhere only Danny knew. And one... She paused. Looked at Hawk. One that I've had for 28 years. Hawk's face went pale. You never told me. You were a drunk and a liability. Danny loved you, but he didn't trust you. Not with something this important. Viper's voice softened slightly. No offense. You had it this whole time. You could have taken down Sergei years ago. With what cops, judges, politicians in Sergei's pocket. Anyone I gave that drive to would have ended up dead, and the evidence would have disappeared. Viper looked at Grace. But things are different now. Victor doesn't have his father's connections. He's vulnerable. And now he thinks he's won. So what's the plan? Viper smiled. We let him think he's destroyed the evidence. Let him get comfortable. And then we burn his entire empire to the ground. Grace stared at this woman. This stranger who had loved her father. Who had waited 28 years for revenge. Who had saved her life without hesitation. Why? Grace asked. Why do all this? My father's been dead for decades. Why not just move on? Viper's eyes met hers. Because some debts can't be forgiven, and some loves don't die. Her voice cracked. Your daddy saved my life once, pulled me out of a situation that should have killed me. He didn't have to, could have walked away, but that wasn't who he was. She took a breath. I couldn't save him. I've lived with that every day since. But I can save his daughter. I can finish what he started, and I can make sure the people who murdered him pay for every single second of pain they caused. Grace didn't know what to say. This stranger had dedicated her life to avenging a man Grace never knew. What do you need from me? Grace finally asked. Right now, stay alive. Stay hidden. Viper handed her a new burner phone. I'll be in touch. Hawk, take her somewhere safe, not her apartment, not the nursing home, somewhere off the grid. I know a place. Good. Viper climbed back on her motorcycle. And Grace, your mother, I've got people watching her, better people than what Victor had. She's safe. Thank you. Viper nodded once. Then she was gone. The roar of her engine fading into the distance. Grace turned to Hawk. Did you know about her? I knew she existed. Thought she died years ago. Hawk ran a hand over his face. Your father had a lot of secrets, Grace. I'm starting to realize I didn't know half of them. The clubhouse, the Hells Angels. Can they help us? Maybe. But Viper's right. We need to lay low first. Let Victor think he's won. Hawk pulled out his own phone. I know a cabin up north. Off the books. We can hide there while Viper puts her plan together. And my mother? If Viper says she's protected, she's protected. That woman doesn't make promises she can't keep. Grace looked at the phone in her hand. 24 hours ago, she was a nurse working night shifts, worried about nothing more than patient charts and electricity bills. Now she was running for her life, hunted by the Russian mob, protected by a biker gang, and holding secrets that could destroy a criminal empire. Let's go, she said. Hawk nodded. They found an old pickup truck behind the warehouse, keys in the ignition. Viper thinks of everything, Hawk muttered. They drove north, away from Chicago, away from Victor, away from everything Grace had ever known. The sun set behind them, painting the sky blood red. 3 hours later, they reached the cabin. Deep in the woods, no neighbors for miles, no cell service, no way for anyone to find them. Hawk built a fire while Grace sat at the small kitchen table, staring at nothing. "You should eat something," Hawk said. "I'm not hungry." "Grace, tell me about him." She looked up. "My father. Tell me something real. Something my mother never told me." Hawk sat across from her. His weathered face softened. "He was afraid of spiders." Grace blinked. "What? Big tough biker, vice president of the Hells Angels. And he'd scream like a little girl if a spider crawled across his boot." Hawk laughed softly. "I used to tease him about it constantly. He'd punch my arm and tell me to shut up." Grace felt something loosen in her chest. "What else?" "He couldn't cook to save his life. Burned water somehow. Your mama had to teach him how to make toast without setting off the smoke alarm." "Mom always said she was a terrible cook, too." "She was. They used to joke about how their kid would grow up on cereal and takeout." Hawk's eyes glistened. "He loved you so much, Grace. From the moment he found out Helen was pregnant. He used to talk to her belly, tell you stories, promise you the world." Grace's throat tightened. "I wish I remembered him." "He's in you. In the way you stood up to Victor. In the way you protected your mama. In every stubborn, brave, reckless thing you do." Hawk reached across the table, took her hand. "Danny would be so proud of who you've become." A tear slid down Grace's cheek, then another. Then she was sobbing. 28 years of grief and confusion and anger pouring out of her. Hawk moved around the table, held her while she cried. Didn't say anything, just let her feel. When the tears finally stopped, Grace pulled back. "I'm going to take down the Petrovs," she said, "for my father, for my mother, for everyone they've hurt." "I know you are. Will you help me?" Hawk's jaw set. "Until my last breath." They sat in silence after that, the fire crackling, the night pressing in around them. Grace didn't know what tomorrow would bring, didn't know if she'd survive the week. But she knew one thing for certain. She wasn't running anymore. The next morning, Grace woke to the sound of Hawk's voice outside. He was on the phone, speaking in low, urgent tones. She got up, wrapped a blanket around her shoulders, stepped onto the porch. Hawk saw her, held up a finger. 1 minute. "Yeah, I understand. We'll be ready." He hung up. "What is it?" That was Viper. "She's got news." Hawk's face was grim. "Victor accessed a laptop last night. Discovered we still have the USB drive. He's furious." "Good. Let him be furious. There's more." Hawk took a breath. "Viper's contact hacked into Victor's system. Found something on the drive we didn't know about. Something Danny hid in an encrypted file." "What? A video? From the night Danny died?" Grace's world tilted. "What?" "Danny had a camera running in the warehouse, hidden, recording everything." Hawk's voice shook. "Viper's contact got a copy before Victor could destroy it." "What's on the video?" Hawk didn't answer. "Hawk, what's on the video?" "The truth about who really killed your father." Grace grabbed his arm. "Tell me." "It wasn't the Petrovs. Not directly." Hawk met her eyes, and the pain in them made Grace's stomach drop. "There was a mole in the club, Grace. Someone who set Danny up. Someone who told Sergei exactly where he'd be that night. Who? Hawk's jaw clenched. Who Hawk? Judas. The name meant nothing to Grace. The current president of the Chicago chapter, Hawk continued. He was just a sergeant back then, hungry, ambitious. Sergei offered him money and power to betray Danny. Hawk's voice hardened. For 28 years I've ridden beside the man who murdered my brother. I've called him friend, called him family. Grace couldn't breathe. Does he know? Does Judas know the video exists? Not yet, but he will soon. Victor's not stupid. He'll realize the video is leverage. He'll use it to control Judas, or he'll sell it to the highest bidder. We have to move first. That's what Viper said. She wants to meet today. She's got a plan. Then let's go. They drove south, back toward Chicago, back toward danger. Grace watched the trees blur past, her mind racing. Her father's killer was still alive, still breathing, still leading the very club Danny had loved. And Grace was going to make him pay. Viper was waiting at another abandoned building. This time, she wasn't alone. 6 other Hell's Angels stood with her, all of them hard-faced, all of them armed. Grace, Viper nodded. You ready for this? Tell me the plan. Simple. We call a church meeting. All the chapter officers. We show them the video. Let the club decide Judas's fate. And if they side with him, they won't. One of the other bikers stepped forward. Big, bald, covered in tattoos. Judas isn't popular. Never has been. He rose through the ranks by intimidation and backstabbing. Half the club would celebrate if he disappeared. This is Bull, Viper said. He was a prospect when your father was alive. Danny treated him like a little brother. Bull nodded at Grace. Your old man saved my life twice. I owe him everything. Whatever you need, I'm in. Same goes for all of us, another biker added. Danny was a legend. What Judas did, there's no forgiveness for that. Grace looked at these hard men and women who had loved her father, who were willing to risk everything to avenge him. When? She asked. Tonight, Viper said. 8 o'clock, the clubhouse. We end this. The hours crawled by. Grace paced. Hawk sharpened a knife he'd pulled from somewhere. Viper made phone calls, coordinating the meeting. At 6 o'clock, Viper handed Grace a tablet. The video, she said. You should watch it before tonight. You need to know what we're dealing with. Grace's hands trembled as she took the device. You don't have to watch it alone, Hawk said quietly. Yes, I do. She found a quiet corner. Pressed play. The screen showed a warehouse interior. Night vision. Grainy, but clear. Danny Mitchell stood in the center, talking into a phone. It's done. I've got everything. Meet me at the docks at midnight. And this nightmare ends. He hung up, started walking toward the door. Then a figure stepped out of the shadows behind him. Judas, 28 years younger, but unmistakable. Going somewhere, brother? Danny spun. What are you doing here? What I should have done months ago. Judas raised a gun. Sergei's paying me more than I'd make in 10 years of club business. All I have to do is remove a rat. I'm not a rat. I'm trying to protect my family. Your family, Judas spat. You chose some waitress and a kid over your real family, over the club. You deserve what's coming. Please, Danny's voice cracked. I have a daughter, 3 days old. Please don't do this. Should have thought about that before you betrayed us. Judas fired. Danny dropped. The video ended. Grace couldn't see, couldn't breathe, couldn't feel anything except a rage so pure it burned. She watched it again, and again and again, each time the same words, The same gunshot, the same murder. Please, I have a daughter, 3 days old. Her father had begged for his life, begged for hers, and Judas had pulled the trigger anyway. Hawk found her an hour later, still staring at the frozen screen. Grace. He said my name. Her voice was hollow. Right before he died, he said my name. Hawk knelt beside her. I know. He begged. For me. And that monster killed him anyway. I know. Grace looked up. Her eyes were dry now, burned clean by fury. I want to be there tonight. I want to look Judas in the eyes when the truth comes out. Are you sure this won't be pretty? My father died begging. The least I can do is stand and watch his killer fall. Hawk studied her for a long moment. You really are Danny's daughter. Damn right I am. At 7:30, they rolled up to the Hells Angels clubhouse. A dozen motorcycles were already parked outside. More arrived every minute. Stay close to me, Hawk muttered. No matter what happens. They walked inside. The main room was packed. Bikers everywhere, talking in low voices. Tension thick enough to cut. At the far end, seated at a large table, was Judas. He was older than Grace expected, maybe 55, but his eyes were ancient, cold, calculating. Those eyes found Grace immediately. Well, well. Judas stood, spreading his arms. The prodigal niece. Come to join the family. I've come for the truth. Judas's smile faltered, just slightly. Viper stepped forward. About Danny Mitchell. About what really happened in that warehouse 28 years ago. The room went silent. Judas's expression hardened. Ancient history. Why dig it up now? Because I have proof. Viper held up the tablet. Proof that you sold Danny to Sergei Petrov. Proof that you're the reason he died. Judas laughed, but there was no humor in it. That's ridiculous. Danny was my brother. I loved him. Then you won't mind if we watch this video together. Viper pressed play. The room watched in silence. Danny's voice filled the space, then Judas's, then the gunshot. When it ended, no one moved. No one spoke. Judas's face had gone white. His hands were shaking. That's fake, he stammered. Deep fake. CGI. Someone doctored it. The FBI's forensic team will determine that, Viper said calmly. I've already sent them a copy, along with everything else Danny gathered. You can't... I already did. Judas's eyes darted around the room, looking for allies, finding none. Brothers, he said desperately. You know me. You know I'd never... Bull stepped forward. We watched you murder Danny in cold blood. We watched you beg Sergei Petrov for money like a dog begging for scraps. It's not what it looks like. It's exactly what it looks like. Bull's voice was ice. You're a traitor. You're a murderer. And you're no brother of mine. Judas reached for his gun. 6 bikers drew on him simultaneously. Don't. Viper's voice was calm, almost gentle. You've got nowhere to go, Judas. It's over. Judas's face twisted. Rage, fear, desperation. Then something broke behind his eyes. He dropped his gun, raised his hands. What happens now? He asked quietly. Viper looked at Grace. That's up to her. Every eye in the room turned to Grace. She walked forward, until she stood directly in front of Judas. My father begged you, she said softly. He told you about me, 3 days old, and you shot him anyway. Grace, Don't say my name. Her voice cracked like a whip. Don't pretend you have any right to speak to me. She turned to Viper. Get him to the FBI. Let him rot in prison for the rest of his miserable life. Let him wake up every morning knowing that Danny Mitchell's daughter put him there. Judas's face crumpled. Prison, Grace, please. The things they'll do to me in there. Good. Grace didn't look back. I hope you think about my father every single day until you die. She walked out of the clubhouse. Hawk followed. Viper stayed behind to deal with Judas. Outside, the cool night air hit Grace's face. She realized she was shaking, tears streaming down her cheeks. Hawk wrapped an arm around her. You did good, kid. I don't feel good. I feel sick. That's because you're human, and what you just did took more strength than most people have in their entire lives. Grace leaned into him. Is it over? Hawk hesitated. Judas is finished, but Victor's still out there, and he's not going to stop just because we exposed one traitor. Then we keep fighting. Grace, you don't have to. Yes, I do. She straightened, wiped her eyes. My father died trying to protect this city from the Petrovs. I'm not stopping until the job is done. Hawk studied her for a long moment. Then he smiled. You really are Danny's daughter. Damn right I am. Viper emerged from the clubhouse, her face grim but satisfied. It's done. FBI's on their way. Judas will be in federal custody within the hour. What about Victor? He'll know something went wrong when his leverage disappears. He'll be dangerous. Viper met Grace's eyes. You ready for what comes next? Tell me what you need. Rest tonight. Tomorrow we plan. Victor thinks he's won. He has no idea that everything he built is about to collapse around him. Grace nodded. Exhaustion was starting to hit, the adrenaline wearing off. Hawk, Viper said. Take her somewhere safe. Get her some food. Let her sleep. Already on it. They drove back to the cabin in silence. Grace watched the city lights fade behind them, replaced by the darkness of the countryside. Her father's killer was going to prison. One enemy down. But the war was just beginning. That night, Grace dreamed of her father for the first time. He was young, smiling, holding a baby girl in his arms. He looked down at her with such love that it made Grace's heart ache. I'm so proud of you, he whispered. My brave girl. Grace woke with tears on her pillow, and her father's words echoing in her mind. She got out of bed, walked to the window, stared at the dark forest outside. Tomorrow, she would continue the fight her father started 28 years ago. Tomorrow, she would take down the Petrov Empire. But tonight, for just a moment, she let herself grieve. For the father she never knew. For the childhood she never had. For all the years lost to lies and secrets and fear. I'll finish it, Dad, she whispered to the darkness. I promise. And somewhere, somehow, she felt like he heard her. The phone rang at 4 a.m. Grace jerked awake, heart pounding. Hawk was already on his feet, gun in hand, moving toward the window. It's Viper, Grace said, looking at the burner phone screen. She answered. What's wrong? Victor hit the nursing home. Viper's voice was tight, controlled, but Grace heard the tension beneath it. 20 minutes ago. Grace's blood turned to ice. My mother, she's alive. My people got her out before Victor's men breached the building. But 3 staff members are dead, Grace. 3 innocent people. Grace's legs gave out. She sat on the edge of the bed, phone pressed to her ear, unable to speak. He's sending a message, Viper continued. He knows about Judas, knows we exposed him. This is retaliation. Where's my mother now? Safe house on the west side. Armed guards. She's scared and confused, but physically unharmed. Hawk crouched in front of Grace, his face grim. She put the phone on speaker. "What's our move?" Hawk asked. "We accelerate the timeline. I was planning to take down Victor's operations piece by piece, but we don't have that luxury anymore. He's going scorched earth." "What do you need from us?" "Get to the safe house. Grace needs to see her mother, and we need to plan our next move together. I'm sending the address now." The line went dead. Grace stared at the phone. 3 staff members dead. 3 people who had cared for her mother, who had nothing to do with any of this. Because of her. "Don't," Hawk's voice cut through her spiraling thoughts. "Don't you dare blame yourself for what Victor did. Those people are dead because of me. Those people are dead because Viktor Petrov is a monster. Same monster who killed your father. Same monster who's been terrorizing this city for decades." Hawk gripped her shoulders. "The only way to honor them is to finish this. End him. Make sure he can't hurt anyone else." Grace met his eyes, saw the same rage she felt reflected back at her. "Then let's go." They drove through the darkness, reaching the safe house just as dawn broke. It was a nondescript building in a quiet neighborhood, nothing to indicate the firepower hidden inside. Viper met them at the door. "She's in the back bedroom. She's been asking for you." Grace rushed past her, found her mother sitting on a bed, wrapped in a blanket, eyes wide and frightened. "Mom?" Helen looked up. For a moment, confusion clouded her features. Then recognition sparked. "Grace." She reached out with trembling hands. "Baby, what's happening? Why are there men with guns? Where am I?" Grace sat beside her, pulling her close. "You're safe, Mom. I promise, no one's going to hurt you." There was noise, shouting. "They put me in a car." Helen's voice shook. "I don't understand. I don't understand any of this." "I know, Mom. I know. But I need you to trust me." "Can you do that?" Helen pulled back, studying her daughter's face, and for a moment the fog seemed to clear, really clear. "This is about your father, isn't it?" Grace's breath caught. "What do you remember? More than you think." Helen's voice steadied. "The doctors say my mind is going. But some things you never forget, no matter how hard you try. Mom, I need to ask you something important. The teddy bear, the one Dad gave me when I was born. Was there anything else? Anything else he gave you that I don't know about?" Helen's eyes flickered. Something passed across her face. Fear. Memory. Decision. "There's a letter." "What letter?" "Danny wrote it the night before he died. Gave it to me. Told me to keep it hidden until you were old enough to understand." Helen's hand tightened on Grace's. "I was supposed to give it to you on your 25th birthday, but then my mind started going, and I forgot where I put it, and I thought maybe it was better that way. Better for you not to know." "Where is it, Mom? Where's the letter?" Helen closed her eyes, concentrating, fighting through the fog. "The church. St. Michael's." A weak laugh escaped her. Danny thought that was funny. A letter from Danny hidden in St. Michael's. There's a loose stone behind the altar, left side. He made me memorize it before he... She couldn't finish. Grace hugged her tight. "Thank you, Mom. Thank you. Be careful, baby." Helen's voice was barely a whisper. "He died trying to protect you. Don't let his sacrifice be for nothing." "I won't. I promise." Grace left her mother in the care of Viper's guards, found Hawk and Viper waiting in the front room. "St. Michael's Church," Grace said. "There's a letter from my father hidden there. Something he wrote before he died." Viper's eyebrows rose. Danny left more than one insurance policy. Smart man. She grabbed her keys. Let's go get it. They took 2 vehicles. Grace rode with Hawk. Viper followed with Bull and 2 other bikers. St. Michael's was an old Catholic church on the south side. Hawk parked a block away, scanning the street. Looks quiet, he said. Too quiet? Grace asked. Maybe, stay alert. They approached the church on foot. The front doors were unlocked. Inside, the morning light filtered through stained glass windows. Behind the altar, Grace said. Left side. They moved quickly. Grace found the loose stone exactly where her mother described. She pried it free with her fingers, revealing a small, hollow space. Inside was a yellowed envelope, sealed with wax. Her father's handwriting on the front, for my daughter Grace, to be opened when she's ready. Grace's hands shook as she pulled it out. Open it, Hawk said softly. Grace broke the seal, unfolded the letter inside. Her father's voice seemed to echo through the words. My dearest Grace, if you're reading this, it means I didn't make it. It means your mother kept her promise and kept you safe. And it means you finally learned the truth about who I was and what I did. I'm not going to apologize for my life. The club, the brotherhood, the things I did, they made me who I am. But you made me want to be better. The moment I held you in my arms, everything changed. You were 3 days old, perfect and innocent, and I knew I would burn the world to ashes to keep you safe. I'm writing this because I don't know if I'll survive tomorrow. Sergei Petrov's people are closing in. There's a traitor in the club. Someone I trusted. I don't know who yet, but I've left evidence that will expose them eventually. If I die, I need you to know something. The evidence I gathered against the Petrovs is only part of the story. There's more. Hidden in a place only one person knows about. Viper. She was my partner before your mother. My confidant. My protector. If you ever need help, find her. She'll tell you everything. But more important than any of that, more important than revenge or justice or anything else, I need you to know this. I love you. I love you more than I have words to express. Every day of your life, even if I'm not there to see it, know that your father loved you with his whole heart. Be brave, Grace. Be strong. Be better than I was. And if the day comes when you have to choose between vengeance and peace, choose peace. I've spent my life fighting. I don't want that for you. All my love forever. Dad. Grace couldn't see, couldn't breathe. Tears blurred the words on the page. Hawk's arm wrapped around her. Viper stood silent, her own eyes glistening. He knew, Grace choked out. He knew he was going to die. He knew it was a possibility, Viper said quietly. We all did. But he went anyway, because the alternative was worse, living under Petrov's shadow forever, raising you in a world where men like Sergei made the rules. Grace folded the letter carefully, pressed it against her heart. He told me to choose peace. He did. But Victor won't let me. He killed 3 innocent people last night. He's not going to stop. No, he won't. Grace looked up, met Viper's eyes. Then I'll end it. Not for revenge, for protection, so no one else has to die. Viper nodded slowly. Your father would understand that. The sound of motorcycles outside shattered the moment. Bull burst through the church doors. We've got company. 6 vehicles. Petrov's men. How did they find us? Hawk demanded. Doesn't matter. They're here. Bull pulled his gun. Back exit, now. They ran through the church, past the altar, into a narrow hallway that led to a rear door. Grace pushed through first, and stopped. Victor Petrov stood in the alley, flanked by a dozen armed men. Going somewhere, he smiled. The bandage on his shoulder from Viper's bullet was visible under his jacket. You didn't think I'd let you walk away twice, did you? Grace felt Hawk and Viper emerge behind her, heard the clicks of weapons being raised. "Put your guns down," Victor said calmly, "or my men put bullets in all of you. It's very simple. If we're going to die anyway, might as well take some of you with us," Viper growled. "True, but consider this." Victor pulled out his phone, showed them the screen, a live video feed, Helen sitting in a bedroom, unaware of the camera pointed at her. "My men are already inside," Victor continued. "They neutralized your guards 10 minutes ago. So quiet, so professional. Your mother has no idea she's about to die, unless you cooperate." Grace's heart stopped. "You're bluffing." "Am I?" Victor spoke into his phone. "Show her." On the screen, a man stepped into frame behind Helen, put a gun to her head. Helen didn't even flinch, didn't know he was there. "Put down your weapons," Victor repeated, "or watch your mother die in real time." Grace looked at Hawk, at Viper, saw the same helpless rage she felt. Slowly they lowered their guns. Victor's men moved in, took their weapons, bound their hands with zip ties. "Good," Victor said. "Now, we're going to take a little ride, and you're going to tell me everything Danny Mitchell hid, or I'm going to kill everyone you've ever loved." They were loaded into a van, black interior, no windows. The door slammed shut, plunging them into darkness. "I'm sorry," Grace whispered. "Don't be," Viper replied. "This isn't over. How can you say that he has my mother? He has us. He has everything. He doesn't have everything." Viper's voice was calm, too calm. "He doesn't know about the third copy of the evidence, the one I already gave to the FBI this morning." Hawk's head snapped toward her. "You did what? Insurance. The feds are building a case against Victor as we speak. Arrest warrants are being prepared. By tomorrow morning, every Petrov asset in the country will be frozen." "That doesn't help us right now," Grace said. "No, but it means Victor's empire is collapsing whether he kills us or not. We just need to survive long enough for the cavalry to arrive." "And how do we do that?" Viper was quiet for a moment. "We stall. We lie. We do whatever it takes to buy time." The van drove for what felt like hours. When it finally stopped, they were dragged out into a building. Industrial, abandoned. The kind of place where people disappeared. Victor was waiting, seated in a chair like a king on a throne. "Welcome to the end," he said pleasantly. "Let's begin." He stood, walked toward Grace, stopped inches from her face. "Your father stole something from my family, something more valuable than money. He stole our reputation, our power, our future." Victor's voice hardened. "I've spent 15 years in prison because of what he set in motion. 15 years dreaming of this moment." "My father's dead. You can't hurt him anymore." "No, but I can hurt you." Victor smiled. "And through you I can finally get what I want." "Which is what?" "The original documents, the physical evidence, the things Danny gathered before anyone knew about digital copies." Victor circled her slowly. "The USB drives are thorough, but courts like paper, original signatures, physical proof. And I know Danny hid the originals somewhere only family would know." "I don't know what you're talking about," Victor sighed. "I was hoping you'd cooperate. Truly I was." He nodded to one of his men. "Bring the old woman." Grace's blood ran cold. "No, leave her out of this." "You can stop this at any time. Just tell me where Danny hid the originals." "I don't know." "Then let's see if watching your mother suffer refreshes your memory." The door opened. Two men dragged Helen inside. She was crying, confused, terrified. "Mom, Grace," Helen's voice cracked. "Grace, what's happening? Who are these people? Let her go." Grace strained against her bonds. "She has dementia. She doesn't know anything." "Then she'll die for nothing. Such a waste." Victor pulled a gun, pressed it against Helen's temple. "Please," Grace sobbed. "Please, I'll do anything. I'll give you anything. Just don't hurt her." "Then tell me what I want to know." "I can't tell you something I don't know." Victor's finger tightened on the trigger. "Wait." Viper's voice cut through the chaos. Everyone froze. "I know where the originals are." Victor turned. "What did you say?" "I said I know where they are. Danny told me before he died. I'm the only person alive who knows." Viper met his eyes steadily. "Let them go, all of them, and I'll take you there myself." "Viper, no." Hawk's voice was desperate. "Shut up." Viper didn't look at him. "This ends now. No more death. No more suffering. Danny wanted peace for his daughter. I'm going to give it to her." Victor studied her for a long moment. "You'd sacrifice yourself for them." "I've been waiting to die for 28 years. Ever since Danny. This is just finishing what should have ended a long time ago." Something shifted in Victor's expression. Respect, maybe. Or just cold calculation. "Very well." He lowered the gun from Helen's head. "My men will take these three to a secure location. You and I will retrieve the documents. If you're telling the truth, they'll be released unharmed. If you're lying, I'm not lying. Then we have a deal." They unbound Viper, led her toward the door. "Viper," Grace's voice was raw. "Don't do this." Viper looked back, and for the first time, Grace saw the woman beneath the hardness, the woman who had loved her father, who had spent 28 years carrying the weight of his death. "Take care of each other," Viper said softly. "And Grace, your father was right about you. You're the best thing he ever did." She walked out without looking back. The door closed. Grace screamed. Hawk tried to reach her, but the guards held him back. Helen sobbed in confusion, not understanding anything that had just happened, and somewhere in the distance Victor's car engine roared to life, heading toward whatever final destination Viper had chosen. Hours passed, or maybe minutes. Grace couldn't tell anymore. They were locked in a small room, hands still bound, guards outside the door. Helen had cried herself to sleep, her head resting on Grace's shoulder. Hawk sat against the wall. Eyes closed, but Grace knew he wasn't sleeping. "She's not coming back, is she?" Grace whispered. Hawk didn't answer. "She traded her life for ours, just like my father. Viper made her choice. Same choice Danny made. Same choice any of us would make for family. She wasn't my family." Hawk opened his eyes. "Yeah, she was. Maybe not by blood, but by everything that matters." He shifted, trying to find a comfortable position with his hands bound. "Your father had that effect on people. Made them willing to die for him. Made them want to be better than they were. I never even got to know him. You're knowing him now. Every person who steps up to help you, every sacrifice that's made, that's Danny. That's his legacy living through you. Is that supposed to make me feel better? No. It's supposed to help you understand why all of this happened. Why Danny did what he did. Why Viper sacrificed herself. Why your mother killed—" Hawk stopped. Grace stared at him. "Why my mother what? Nothing. Forget I said anything." "Hawk." Before he could answer, the door burst open. Grace tensed. expecting Victor's men, expecting the worst. Instead, Bull rushed in, followed by a half-dozen Hell's Angels. "Found them!" Bull shouted over his shoulder. "They're alive." "What?" Grace couldn't process what she was seeing. "How did you find us?" "Viper." Bull was already cutting their zip ties. "She was wearing a tracker. Led us right to you." "Viper's alive." Bull's face fell. "We don't know. The tracker stopped moving an hour ago. We're still looking." Grace's heart clenched. "We have to find her." "We will, but first we need to get you out of here. Feds are swarming Victor's locations all over the city. His empire is collapsing, but he's still out there, and he's desperate." They moved fast, out of the room, through the building, into waiting vehicles. As they drove away, Grace looked back at the place where she'd almost died. Her father's killer was in custody. Her mother was safe. The Petrov Empire was crumbling, but Viper was still missing. And until Grace found her, until she knew the fate of the woman who had sacrificed everything, this wasn't over. It wouldn't be over until every debt was paid. Every wrong was righted. And every person who had loved Danny Mitchell could finally rest. The convoy split up. Bull took Grace Hawk and Helen to another safe house, this one guarded by a dozen armed bikers, and to Grace's shock, 2 FBI agents. "We've got warrants for Viktor Petrov and every member of his organization," one agent explained. "Thanks to the evidence your associate provided, we're looking at RICO charges, murder for hire, drug trafficking, and about 17 other federal crimes." "What about Victor himself?" Grace demanded. "Have you arrested him?" The agent's expression darkened. "Not yet. He's gone to ground, but we've frozen all his accounts, seized his properties, shut down his operations. He's got nowhere to run." "He's got Viper." "We know. We're doing everything we can to locate her." Hawk stepped forward. "Do everything faster." The agent didn't flinch. "We understand the urgency, but Petrov is dangerous and unpredictable. We have to proceed carefully." "Carefully?" Hawk's voice dripped with contempt. "While he tortures a woman who risked everything to help you, Hawk." Grace touched his arm. "Fighting them won't help Viper." Hawk's jaw clenched, but he stepped back. Grace turned to the agent. "What can I do?" "There has to be something." "Stay here. Stay safe. Let us do our jobs." "That's not good enough." "It's going to have to be." The agent walked away. Grace stared after him, frustration boiling in her chest. Viper had sacrificed herself to save Grace's mother, and now she was supposed to just sit and wait. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She answered. "Hello, Grace?" Victor's voice slithered through the speaker. "Missing someone." Every muscle in Grace's body went rigid. "Where's Viper?" "Safe, for now, but that can change very quickly." "What do you want?" "The same thing I've always wanted. The original documents your father hid." Victor's voice hardened. "Viper told me she knows where they are, but she's being uncooperative. Perhaps you can convince her." "How?" "Meet me, alone, 1 hour. I'll text you the location, and if you don't come..." He paused. "I'll send you pieces of her, 1 per hour, starting with her fingers." The line went dead. Grace lowered the phone, looked at Hawk. "I'm going." "The hell you are," he grabbed her arm. "He has Viper, and if you go alone he'll have you too." Hawk's grip tightened. This is exactly what he wants. To isolate you. To finish what he started. What choice do I have? We bring the club. We bring the feds. We hit him with everything we have. And he kills Viper before anyone gets close. Grace shook her head. "No. I have to do this. Grace, my father died protecting me. Viper sacrificed herself, protecting me. I'm done letting other people pay for my safety. Her voice broke. I'm going, Hawk, with or without your blessing. Hawk stared at her, and slowly something shifted in his expression. Resignation, pride, fear. Then I'm coming with you. He said alone. I'll stay back, out of sight, but I'm not letting you walk in there without backup. Hawk's jaw set. That's not negotiable. Grace wanted to argue, but the truth was she was terrified. Having Hawk nearby, even hidden, made the difference between courage and suicide. Okay. Hawk nodded. Okay. The text came 2 minutes later. An address on the waterfront. Abandoned meatpacking plant. They left without telling the feds. Without telling anyone except Bull, who insisted on following at a distance with reinforcements. If something goes wrong, Bull said, we're coming in guns blazing. No arguments. Grace hugged him. This man she'd only met days ago, who had loved her father, who was willing to die for a stranger. Thank you. Thank me when we're all drinking beers and laughing about this. Bull's voice was gruff. Now go. Bring Viper home. Grace and Hawk drove toward the waterfront, toward Victor, toward the final confrontation. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and red, like fire, like the warehouse where her father died. Grace pushed the thought away, focused on what lay ahead. One way or another, this ended tonight. Grace's hands gripped the steering wheel so hard her knuckles turned white. Hawk sat beside her, checking his gun for the 3rd time. Remember, he said quietly, I'll be 50 yards behind you. Anything goes wrong, you hit the ground and stay down. And if Victor has snipers, then we're both dead anyway. Hawk met her eyes. But I don't think he does. He wants this personal. He wants to look you in the eyes when he wins. He's not going to win. No, he's not. They parked 2 blocks from the meatpacking plant. Grace stepped out of the car. The evening air was cold against her skin. Grace, Hawk's voice stopped her. Your father would be terrified right now, but he'd still go. That's what made him who he was. What if I'm not as brave as him? You already are. You just don't know it yet. Grace nodded, turned, started walking. The meatpacking plant loomed ahead. Rusted metal, broken windows, the kind of place where hope went to die. She pushed through the main entrance. Victor was waiting. He sat on a metal chair, legs crossed, perfectly calm. Behind him, Viper hung from chains attached to an overhead beam. Her face was bloody, her left eye swollen shut, but she was breathing. Grace, Victor spread his arms. So good of you to join us. Let her go. In time. First we need to discuss business. Victor stood, walked toward her slowly. The original documents. Where are they? I don't know. Wrong answer. Victor pulled a knife, walked to Viper, pressed the blade against her cheek. Let me ask again. I'm telling you the truth. Grace's voice cracked. I didn't even know my father was in the Hells Angels until a week ago. I don't know anything about original documents. But she does. Victor pressed harder. Blood welled around the blade. Viper didn't make a sound. She just stared straight ahead. She just refuses to tell me. Because they don't exist. Viper's voice was weak but defiant. Danny destroyed the originals after he made the digital copies. I watched him do it. There's nothing left for you to find. Victor's face twisted. You're lying. I'm not. You've been chasing a ghost for 28 years. Viper laughed. blood spraying from her split lip. All this death, all this suffering. For nothing. Shut up. Your father died of a heart attack, eaten alive by paranoia because he couldn't accept that the evidence was out of his reach. And now you're doing the same thing. You're going to die for nothing, Victor. Just like him. Victor hit her. Hard. Viper's head snapped back. She went limp. Stop! Grace lunged forward. Victor spun, pointing the knife at her. One more step, and I'll gut her right now. Grace froze. The documents exist. Victor's voice was tight with barely controlled rage. They have to exist. Danny was too careful to put everything in digital form. He would have kept physical backups. Maybe he did. Maybe he didn't. Grace's mind raced desperately, searching for leverage. But even if the originals exist, killing us won't help you find them. It'll make me feel better. And then what, the FBI has the digital evidence. Your empire is already collapsing. Killing us won't change that. Victor laughed, a hollow, bitter sound. You think I don't know that you think I care about the empire anymore? He stepped closer. Close enough that Grace could see the madness in his eyes. My father built something powerful, something that lasted decades, and your father tore it down with a thumb drive and a prayer. Victor's voice dropped to a whisper. I spent 15 years in prison because of Danny Mitchell. 15 years watching my family crumble. 15 years dreaming about this moment. So this is just revenge. This is justice. Victor raised the knife. An eye for an eye. A daughter for a father. Your father killed mine first. My father didn't kill anyone. He gathered evidence. Your father was a murderer. My father was a businessman. Your father was a traitor, a rat. He deserved what he got. Something in Grace snapped. My father was trying to protect his family. He was trying to give me a life without fear, without violence, without men like you. Her voice rose. He was more of a man than your father or you will ever be. Victor backhanded her. Grace hit the ground, tasting blood. But she didn't stay down. She pushed herself up, glaring at him with defiance burning in her eyes. Go ahead, she spat. Kill me. But it won't bring back your father. It won't restore your empire. It won't change anything. You'll still be a pathetic little man desperately trying to live up to a legacy you never deserved. Victor's face contorted with rage. He raised the knife. A gunshot echoed through the building. Victor staggered. Blood bloomed on his arm. The knife clattered to the ground. Hawk emerged from the shadows. Gun raised. Get away from her! Victor's men burst from their hiding spots. 6 of them. Guns drawn. Kill him! Victor screamed, clutching his wounded arm. Gunfire erupted. Grace dove behind a metal crate. Bullets pinged off the walls around her. She heard Hawk returning fire, heard men screaming. Then a new sound. Motorcycles. Dozens of them. The doors exploded inward. Bull led the charge, followed by every Hell's Angel in Chicago. They poured in like a wave, overwhelming Victor's remaining men. Grace! Hawk was at her side, pulling her up. You okay? Viper. We have to get Viper. They ran toward where Viper hung. Hawk found a release mechanism. The chains dropped. Grace caught her before she hit the ground. Viper! Viper, can you hear me? One eye opened. The one that wasn't swollen shut. Took you long enough? Viper croaked. Grace laughed, tears streaming down her face. You're insane. You know that, trading yourself for us. Had a plan. Viper coughed. Knew you'd come. Knew the club would follow. You could have been killed. Worth it. Viper's hand found Grace's, squeezed weakly. Your daddy would have done the same thing. Hell, he did do the same thing. Guess I finally understand why. The gunfire stopped. Grace looked up. Victor's men were down, dead or surrendering. Bull and his crew had them surrounded, but Victor himself was gone. "Where is he?" Grace demanded. "Where's Victor?" "Back door." Bull pointed. "2 of my guys went after him." "I'm going." "Grace, wait." But she was already running. She burst through the back door into an alley, found 2 Hell's Angels on the ground, groaning, clutching wounds. Not dead, but disabled. Victor stood at the end of the alley, holding a gun. "You should have stayed inside," he said. Grace stopped. She had no weapon, no protection, nothing. "It's over, Victor. Your men are finished. The FBI has everything. You have nowhere to go." "I have one place to go." Victor raised the gun. "And I'm taking you with me. Killing me won't save you. I don't want to be saved. I just want to finish this." His finger tightened on the trigger. "Say hello to your father for me." Grace closed her eyes. A shot rang out. She waited for pain, for darkness, for death. Nothing. She opened her eyes. Victor stood frozen, a look of disbelief on his face. A red stain spread across his chest. Behind him, Helen Mitchell lowered a shaking gun. "Mom." Helen's face was pale. Her hands trembled so badly the gun nearly fell from her fingers, but her eyes were clear, clearer than Grace had seen them in years. "I remember everything," Helen whispered. "The warehouse. The night Danny died. The man who took him from me." Her voice hardened. "I remember all of it." Victor dropped to his knees. Blood bubbled from his lips. How?" "I was there that night." Helen walked toward him, each step steady despite her shaking hands. "I saw what your father did. I heard Danny's last words. And I've been living with that memory for 28 years, pretending to forget, praying I'd never have to face it again." She stopped in front of him. "But you wouldn't let me forget. You came for my daughter, for the only thing Danny left me." Helen's voice cracked. "So I had to remember. I had to be the woman Danny loved one last time." Victor tried to speak. Only blood came out. He collapsed. Helen stared down at him for a long moment. Then the gun slipped from her fingers, and she crumpled. "Mom." Grace caught her before she hit the ground. "Mom, stay with me. Stay with me." "I'm sorry, baby." Helen's voice was barely a whisper. "I'm sorry I lied. Sorry I kept the truth from you. I thought if you never knew you'd be safe. You saved my life." "I couldn't save Danny." Helen's eyes found Grace's. "But I could save you. That's all I ever wanted. To keep you safe." "You did, Mom. You did." Hawk appeared at the end of the alley, took in the scene. Victor dead. Helen in Grace's arms. The gun on the ground. "Jesus," he breathed. "Help me," Grace said. "We need to get her out of here." They lifted Helen between them, carried her back through the building, past the bodies, past the blood, into the night air where sirens were already wailing in the distance. Bull met them outside. "Feds are 2 minutes out. We need to go. My mother needs a hospital. We've got a clean doctor off the books. He'll take care of her." They loaded Helen into a waiting van. Grace climbed in beside her, holding her hand. "Stay with me, Mom. Stay with me." Helen's eyes were closing, the clarity fading, the fog rolling back in. "Danny." Helen's voice was distant, confused. "Danny, is that you? It's Grace, Mom. It's Grace. Grace." A smile ghosted across Helen's lips. Such a beautiful name. Danny chose it. Said it meant grace of God. Said our daughter would be a blessing. Tears streamed down Grace's face. He loved you so much, baby. Never doubt that. Never forget. I won't, Mom. I promise. Helen's eyes closed, her breathing steadied. Not dead. Just exhausted. Just retreating into the safety of her broken mind. Grace held her hand the entire way to the doctor. And for the first time since this nightmare began, she let herself believe it might actually be over. 3 hours later, Grace sat in a small clinic, waiting, praying, dying inside. Hawk was beside her, silent, supportive. Viper was in surgery. The damage was extensive, but the doctor was optimistic. She'd lost a lot of blood, taken a beating that would have killed most people. But she was tough. Tougher than anyone Grace had ever met. Helen was resting in another room. Stable. Unharmed physically. But the mental exertion of remembering, of acting, of killing it had taken everything she had. The doctor said she might never have another lucid moment again. Grace didn't know if that was a blessing or a curse. Bull appeared in the doorway. Feds want to talk to you. Not now. They're insisting. Hawk stood. I'll handle it. No. Grace rose. I'll talk to them. This is my mess. I'll clean it up. She found 2 FBI agents waiting outside, the same ones from the safe house. Miss Mitchell. The lead agent's voice was formal. We have questions. I'm sure you do. Viktor Petrov is dead, shot in an alley behind the meatpacking plant. We have witnesses saying your mother pulled the trigger. Grace said nothing. That's murder, Miss Mitchell. Regardless of the circumstances. That's self-defense. Grace's voice was cold. Viktor Petrov kidnapped my mother. Tortured a woman who tried to protect us. Tried to kill me in that alley. My mother did what she had to do to save my life. The prosecutors might see it differently. Then let them try to convict a 63-year-old woman with dementia who can barely remember her own name. Grace stepped closer. My mother is a victim. She's been a victim for 28 years. And if you try to make her a criminal, I will make sure every news outlet in the country knows how the FBI failed to protect us. How you let Viktor Petrov slip through your fingers. How 3 innocent people died at that nursing home because you couldn't do your jobs. The agent's jaw tightened. We have the evidence against the Petrov organization, Grace continued. Enough to prosecute every member still breathing. You have your victory. Now leave my mother alone. Silence stretched between them. Finally, the agent nodded. We'll be in touch about the ongoing investigation. But for now, your mother is not a person of interest. Good. The agents left. Grace sagged against the wall. Hawk appeared beside her. That was impressive. I learned from watching Viper. Grace managed a weak smile. Turns out I can be pretty scary when I need to be. Your father would be proud. You keep saying that. Because it's true. Hawk put a hand on her shoulder. Danny always said the best parts of him lived on in the people he loved. In Helen. In Viper. In me. His voice softened. And most of all in you. Grace's throat tightened. I never got to know him. You're knowing him now. Every choice you make. Every person you protect. That's Danny. That's his legacy living through you. Is that supposed to make me feel better? No. It's supposed to help you understand why all of this happened. Why Danny did what he did. Why Viper sacrificed herself. Why your mother killed a man to save you. Hawk met her eyes. Love, Grace. That's what this whole thing has been about. Not revenge. Not justice. Love. Grace thought about her father's letter. Choose peace. She hadn't chosen peace tonight. She'd chosen war. chosen violence, chosen death. But maybe that was okay. Maybe peace came after the fighting stopped, after the enemies were gone, after the people you loved were safe. Viper's out of surgery. Bull's voice broke through her thoughts. Is she okay? Doctor says she'll make a full recovery. Tough old bird. Bull almost smiled. She's asking for you. Grace found Viper in a recovery room, bandaged and bruised, but awake. Those hard eyes found Grace immediately. You look like hell, Viper said. You should talk. I've looked worse. Viper shifted, wincing. Victor, dead. My mother shot him. Viper's eyebrows rose. Helen. She had a moment of clarity, long enough to remember everything, long enough to save my life. I'll be damned. Something like respect flickered in Viper's eyes. Danny always said she was stronger than she looked. Guess he was right. Grace sat beside the bed. Thank you. For everything. For sacrificing yourself. For protecting us. For don't. Viper's voice was sharp. Don't thank me. I didn't do it for gratitude. I did it because it was right. Because Danny would have done the same. She paused. Because I owed him. You don't owe him anything. Not anymore. Maybe. Viper's good eye studied Grace's face. Or maybe the debt just transferred. Maybe now I owe you. Owe me what? The truth. All of it. Viper took a breath. There's things I didn't tell you, Grace. Things about your father. About the club. About what really happened 28 years ago. What kind of things? Viper was quiet for a moment. Then she spoke. Danny wasn't just gathering evidence against the Petrovs. He was building something, a network, people inside law enforcement, inside government, inside other organizations, people who wanted to take down Sergei Petrov as badly as he did. What happened to the network? It went underground after Danny died. Scattered. Waited. Viper met Grace's eyes. But it never went away. And now with Victor dead, and the Petrov Empire collapsing, those people are ready to come forward. Come forward to do what? To finish what Danny started, to clean up Chicago, to make sure no one like Victor or Sergei ever rises again. Grace shook her head. I'm a nurse. I don't know anything about criminal organizations or underground networks. You don't have to. But you're Danny's daughter. People will listen to you. Trust you. Follow you. Viper's voice grew intense. Your father planted seeds, Grace. Seeds that have been growing for 28 years. You can choose to walk away, go back to your normal life, pretend none of this ever happened, or you can help us harvest what he planted. And if I choose to walk away, then we respect that. No pressure, no guilt. Viper's hand found Grace's. But I think you already know what you're going to do. I saw it in your eyes when you faced Victor. You're not the kind of person who walks away. Grace thought about everything she'd been through in the past week. The terror, the violence, the loss, the discovery of who her father really was. She thought about the letter pressed against her heart. Be brave, Grace. Be strong. Be better than I was. I need time, she finally said, to process everything, to take care of my mother, to figure out who I am now that I know the truth. Take all the time you need. Viper settled back against her pillow. We've waited 28 years. We can wait a little longer. Grace stood, paused at the door. Viper. What was my father like? Really not the legend, not the stories. The real man. Viper was quiet for a long moment. He was scared, she finally said, all the time. Scared of failing. scared of losing the people he loved, scared of becoming the thing he hated. Her voice softened. But he never let the fear stop him. He felt it, acknowledged it, and then did what needed to be done anyway. That's what made him special. Not courage, not strength, the ability to be terrified and still move forward. Grace nodded slowly. Thank you. Grace. Viper's voice stopped her. He talked about you constantly. Every day. What you'd look like. Who you'd become. How much he wished he could watch you grow up. Her voice cracked. He loved you more than anything in this world. More than the club. More than me. More than his own life. Never forget that. I won't. Grace walked out of the room, tears streaming down her face, carrying her father's love like a torch in the darkness. The trial began on a cold November morning. 2 weeks had passed since the night Viktor Petrov died. Grace sat in the front row of the courtroom, Hawk on one side, Viper on the other. Behind them, a dozen Hell's Angels filled the gallery, their presence a silent statement of support. Judas was led in wearing an orange jumpsuit, his hands and feet shackled. He looked smaller than Grace remembered. Older. The arrogance that had defined him was gone, replaced by something that looked almost like fear. Good, Grace thought. Let him be afraid. The prosecutor called witness after witness. FBI agents. Forensic experts. Former club members who had turned state's evidence. Each one added another nail to Judas's coffin. Then it was Grace's turn. She walked to the witness stand, feeling every eye in the courtroom on her. Judas's gaze burned into her, but she refused to look away. The prosecutor began with simple questions. Her name, her relationship to Danny Mitchell, how she'd learned the truth about her father's death. Then came the harder questions. Miss Mitchell, can you describe your reaction when you first saw the video of your father's murder? Grace took a breath. I felt like the world had collapsed. My whole life, I believed my father died in a construction accident. Learning that he was murdered, that he was killed by someone he trusted, it broke something inside me. And when you discovered the identity of the killer, Grace finally looked at Judas, met his eyes. I felt rage, pure burning rage. This man sat across the table from my uncle for 28 years, pretending to be his brother, while knowing he'd murdered his actual brother in cold blood. Judas flinched. I wanted him to suffer, Grace continued. I wanted him to feel even a fraction of the pain he'd caused my family. But more than that, I wanted justice. Not revenge, justice. What's the difference? Revenge is personal. It's about making yourself feel better. Justice is bigger than that. It's about protecting other people, making sure no one else has to go through what my family went through. The prosecutor nodded. No further questions. Judas's attorney stood. He was expensive, polished, clearly hired with whatever money Judas had managed to hide. Miss Mitchell, isn't it true that you have a personal vendetta against my client? I have a personal investment in seeing justice served. That's not the same thing. But you admit you want my client to suffer. I admitted I felt that way initially. I also said I've moved beyond it. Have you? The attorney smiled smugly. You've become quite the public figure since these events. Interviews, speaking engagements. Some might say you're profiting from your father's death. Grace felt anger rise in her chest, forced it down. I'm sharing my story because I believe it can help people. Victims of violence, families who've lost loved ones to crime. If my pain can give them hope, then something good came from something terrible. Noble sentiments, but they don't change the fact that you're hardly an unbiased witness. I never claimed to be unbiased. I claimed to tell the truth. Grace leaned forward. And the truth is your client murdered my father. The truth is he betrayed his brothers for money. The truth is he's a coward and a killer who deserves to spend the rest of his life in prison. Objection. The attorney's voice was sharp. Withdrawn. Grace sat back, satisfied with the impact of her words. The attorney tried a few more angles, but Grace parried every attempt. When she finally stepped down from the stand, she felt lighter than she had in weeks. Hawk met her in the hallway. That was incredible. I just told the truth. That's what made it incredible. Hawk hugged her tight. Your father would have been so proud. You keep saying that. Because it keeps being true. The jury deliberated for less than 4 hours. Guilty. On all counts. Judas was sentenced to life in prison without possibility of parole. As he was led away, he turned to look at Grace one last time. Their eyes met across the courtroom. Grace didn't gloat, didn't smile, just nodded once. It's over, that nod said. You took my father from me. But you didn't break me. You didn't win. Judas looked away first. That night the Hells Angels threw a gathering at their clubhouse. Not a celebration, exactly. More like a memorial. A chance to honor Danny Mitchell and finally lay his ghost to rest. Grace stood in the corner, nursing a beer she didn't really want, watching these rough men and women laugh and cry and share stories about her father. Bull found her there. You look uncomfortable. I'm not used to this, being surrounded by people. You'll get used to it. Bull leaned against the wall beside her. Danny used to stand in this exact spot at gatherings, said he liked watching people more than being watched. Sounds like him? You're more like him than you know. Bull took a swig of his beer. Not just the eyes or the stubborn jaw, the way you carry yourself, the way you stand up for people. It's like watching him all over again. That's a lot to live up to. Don't try to live up to it. Just be yourself. Bull shrugged. That's what Danny would have wanted. Not a copy. An evolution. Viper appeared, slightly drunk, leaning heavily on a cane she'd need for the rest of her life. Speech time, she announced. What? You heard me. Get up there and say something. These people came to honor your father. The least you can do is acknowledge them. Grace's stomach clenched. I'm not good at speeches. Neither was Danny. He did it anyway. Viper pushed her toward the front of the room. Go. Be brave. Grace found herself standing before the crowd. Dozens of faces. Hard. Scarred. Weathered by violence and loss. But looking at her with something like hope. She cleared her throat. I didn't know my father. Her voice was shakier than she wanted. Not really. I grew up believing he was just some guy who died before I was born. A sad story. A closed chapter. She paused, took a breath. But then I met all of you. And I learned that Danny Mitchell wasn't just some guy. He was a brother, a friend, a protector. He was someone who made people want to be better than they were. Her voice steadied. I've heard so many stories over the past few weeks. Stories about his courage, his loyalty, his terrible jokes. A ripple of laughter went through the crowd. But the story that stuck with me most was something Viper told me. She said my father was scared all the time. Scared of failing. Scared of losing the people he loved. Scared of becoming the thing he hated. Grace looked at Viper, who nodded encouragingly. But he never let the fear stop him. That's what made him a hero. Not the absence of fear, the ability to feel it and move forward anyway. Emma's eyes swept the room. I'm scared too. Scared of the path I've chosen. scared of what's coming. But I'm not going to let that stop me, because that's what my father would have wanted. That's how I honor his memory. She raised her beer. To Danny Mitchell, the bravest man most of us will ever know. May we all have even half his courage. To Danny, the room echoed back. Everyone drank. Hawk appeared at Grace's side, eyes glistening. That was perfect. I meant every word. I know you did. Hawk put his arm around her. Welcome to the family, Grace Mitchell. For the first time, the name didn't feel like a burden. It felt like a badge of honor. 2 days later, Grace stood outside a different building. Smaller, quieter, more personal. Sunrise Memory Care. She'd moved her mother back here after the dust settled. The staff had been replaced, the security upgraded. Helen Mitchell would spend her remaining years in safety and comfort, surrounded by people who cared for her. Grace walked through the familiar halls, found her mother in the garden, staring at the flowers, just like always. Mom, Helen turned. Today was a foggy day. Grace could see it in her eyes. Do I know you? Grace swallowed the pain. I'm Grace, Mom, your daughter. Grace. Helen tested the name. That's a pretty name. You gave it to me. You and Dad. Dad? Helen frowned. I don't remember. That's okay. Grace sat beside her. You don't have to remember. I'll remember for both of us. They sat in silence for a while, Helen watching the flowers, Grace watching her mother. There was a man, Helen said suddenly. A long time ago. He had dark hair and blue eyes. He made me feel safe. Grace's heart clenched. Tell me about him. He was brave, so brave, but scared too. He told me he was scared all the time. Helen's voice grew distant. He said courage wasn't about not being afraid. It was about being afraid and doing the right thing anyway. He sounds like a good man. He was. Helen's eyes glistened. I loved him. I think he loved me too. He did, Mom. He loved you more than anything. Helen turned to look at her daughter, and for just a moment the fog lifted. Grace. Yes, Mom. I'm here. I remember now. Helen's hand found Grace's. You're my daughter. Danny's daughter. Our daughter. Tears streamed down Grace's face. That's right, Mom. He died protecting us. Protecting you. I know. I tried so hard to forget, to protect you by forgetting, but you found out anyway, didn't you? I found out. Are you angry with me for lying? Grace shook her head. I understand why you did it. You were trying to keep me safe. Just like Dad. I wasn't strong like him. I couldn't fight. All I could do was hide. Helen's voice broke. Hide and pretend and pray that the past would stay buried. You were strong, Mom. You raised me alone. You gave me a normal life. You killed a man to save me. Grace squeezed her mother's hand. That takes more strength than you know. Helen was quiet for a moment. Then she laughed softly. I shot him, didn't I, that horrible man who was trying to hurt you? You did. Good. Helen's voice was fiercer than Grace had ever heard it. I'd do it again, 100 times. I know you would. They sat together, mother and daughter, connected by love and loss and 28 years of secrets. Grace. Helen's voice was fading, the fog rolling back in. I'm here, Mom. Promise me something. Anything. Don't forget him. Your father. Don't let the world forget what he did. I won't, Mom. I promise. Helen smiled, closed her eyes, drifted away. Grace stayed with her until the nurses came to take her inside. Then she walked to her car, sat behind the wheel, and cried. For her mother. Trapped in a broken mind. For her father. Gone before she ever knew him. For herself. Carrying a legacy she never asked for, but couldn't refuse. When the tears finally stopped, Grace wiped her eyes. She had one more stop to make. The cemetery was quiet in the late afternoon light. Grace walked through the rows of headstones until she found the one she was looking for. Danny Ghost Mitchell, 1965 to 1996. Beloved son, brother, father. Grace stood there for a long time, reading the words over and over. "Hey, Dad," she finally said. "I know we've never actually talked, but I figured it was time we met." She knelt, placed flowers at the base of the headstone. "I found your letter, the one you left in St. Michael's. I've read it about 100 times now. I know it by heart." Her voice cracked. "You told me to be brave, to be strong, to be better than you. And you told me to choose peace over vengeance." She wiped her eyes. "I tried, Dad. I really tried. But Victor wouldn't let me walk away. He came from Mom. He came from me. And in the end..." Grace took a breath. "In the end, Mom did what you would have done. She protected her family, no matter the cost." Then she traced her fingers over the engraved letters. "I'm going to finish what you started, the network you built, the people you gathered. They're ready now. And I'm going to lead them. Not for revenge, not for glory, for protection. So no one else has to lose their father the way I lost you." Grace stood, looked up at the sky. "I don't know if you can hear me. I don't know if you're watching. But if you are," her voice steadied, "I hope I make you proud. I hope I'm everything you dreamed I would be. And I hope that somehow wherever you are, you know how much I love you." She kissed her fingers, pressed them against the cold stone. "Goodbye, Dad. For now. But not forever." Grace turned, walked back toward her car. Hawk was waiting, leaning against his motorcycle. "How long have you been here?" Grace asked. "Long enough." He straightened. "You okay?" "Yeah." Grace looked back at the headstone one last time. "I think I finally am." "What now?" Grace thought about everything that lay ahead. The challenges, the dangers, the possibility that she might fail, might fall, might die like her father before her, but also the possibility that she might succeed, that she might change things, that she might build something lasting from the ashes of so much pain. "Now we get to work," she said. "Viper's got contacts who want to meet, people who've been waiting 28 years for someone to lead them. And you're ready for that." Grace met his eyes. "My father spent his whole life fighting for something, trying to make the world better. He died before he could see it through. I have a chance to finish what he started. How can I walk away from that?" Hawk studied her for a long moment. "You really are Danny's daughter." "Damn right I am." Hawk smiled, handed her a helmet. "Then let's ride." Grace climbed onto the back of his motorcycle. They roared out of the cemetery, toward the city, toward the future, toward whatever came next. And as the wind whipped past her face, Grace felt something she hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. Not the naive hope of someone who didn't know how dark the world could be, but the fierce, defiant hope of someone who had seen the darkness and chosen to fight it anyway. Her father had planted seeds 28 years ago. Now It was time to watch them grow. 6 months had passed since the night Viktor Petrov died in that alley. 6 months since Helen Mitchell pulled a trigger and saved her daughter's life. 6 months since Grace Mitchell discovered who she really was. Grace stood at the kitchen counter of her new apartment, pouring coffee into 3 mugs. The morning light streamed through the windows, warming her face. Hawk sat at the table, reading a newspaper. Viper occupied the chair across from him, her scars fading but still visible, a permanent reminder of what she'd endured. "You're staring," Viper said, without looking up. "Just thinking." Grace brought the coffee to the table. "About how strange this feels. 6 months ago I didn't know either of you existed. Now I can't imagine my life without you." Hawk lowered his newspaper. "That's what family does. Shows up when you least expect it. We're not family." "The hell we're not." Hawk's voice was gruff but warm. "Blood doesn't make family, Grace. Choice does, and we chose each other." Grace sat down, wrapping her hands around her mug. "I got a call from the FBI yesterday." Viper's eyebrow rose. "What did they want?" "Judas's appeal was denied. He's staying in prison, for good." Hawk nodded slowly. "Good. That's where he belongs." "There's more." Grace took a breath. "They want me to testify at another trial. One of Sergei Petrov's old lieutenants. They found him hiding in Miami. He's facing life for ordering 3 murders back in the 90s. "Are you going to do it?" "Yes." Grace's voice was steady. "I'm done hiding. I'm done being afraid. These people took my father from me. They terrorized my mother for 28 years. If my testimony can put even one more of them behind bars, then I'll stand up in 100 courtrooms." Viper smiled. "Your daddy would be proud. Everyone keeps saying that. Because it's true." Viper leaned forward. "Speaking of which, we need to talk about the network." Grace set down her coffee. "What about it?" "The contacts I told you about. The people Danny gathered before he died. They've been watching you, Grace. Watching how you handled Victor, how you stood up at Judas's trial, how you've been speaking out about victims' rights. And they want to meet you, formally. All of them." Hawk shifted in his chair. "How many are we talking about? 17 cops, lawyers, a city councilwoman, 2 journalists, a judge." Viper's voice dropped. "And the FBI agent who's been secretly feeding us information for the past decade." Grace stared at her. "You're serious?" "Dead serious. Your father built something incredible, Grace. A network of people committed to fighting corruption, fighting the Petrovs and everyone like them. For 28 years they've been waiting, gathering evidence, building cases, protecting each other. Waiting for what? For someone to lead them." Viper met her eyes. "For you?" Grace's heart pounded. "I'm a nurse. I don't know anything about leading a crusade against corruption." "You know more than you think, and you have something none of us have." Viper reached across the table, took Grace's hand. "You have your father's name, his legacy, his blood. People will follow you because of who he was, but they'll stay because of who you are. And if I fail, then you fail, and we try again, and again, and again, until we win." Viper squeezed her hand. "That's what Danny would have done. That's what he did. For years. Until it killed him." "That's not exactly reassuring." "It's not meant to be reassuring. It's meant to be honest." Viper released her hand, sat back. "This path is dangerous, Grace. People will try to hurt you, try to silence you, try to destroy everything you build. But the alternative is worse." "What alternative?" "Walking away, pretending none of this happened, letting the next Viktor Petrov rise up and terrorize the next generation. Viper's voice hardened. Your father gave his life to prevent that. Are you willing to let his sacrifice be for nothing? Grace was quiet for a long moment. She thought about her mother, trapped in a broken mind, but at peace for the first time in decades. She thought about her father, the man she'd never known, but who had loved her more than anything. She thought about herself, the woman she'd become, the woman she was still becoming. When do I meet them? She finally asked. Viper smiled. Tonight. The meeting took place in the back room of a restaurant on the north side. 17 people sat around a long table, men and women of all ages, all backgrounds, all united by one thing. They had known Danny Mitchell, and they had never forgotten what he died for. Grace stood at the head of the table, heart pounding, palms sweating. Thank you for coming, she said, her voice steadier than she felt. I know some of you have been waiting for this moment for a long time. 28 years, said an older woman with silver hair and sharp eyes. I was a beat cop when I met your father. He saved my partner's life during a shootout with Petrov's men. I've been gathering evidence against corrupt officers ever since. I was a law student, said a man in his 50s. Danny helped me expose a professor who was taking bribes from the mob. Now I'm a federal prosecutor, and I've put 17 of Petrov's associates behind bars. One by one they spoke, sharing their stories, their connections to Danny, their commitment to the cause. Grace listened, overwhelmed, humbled, terrified. These people had dedicated their lives to her father's mission, and now they were looking to her for leadership. When the last person finished speaking, silence fell over the room. Grace took a breath. I'm not going to pretend I know what I'm doing, she said. I'm not a cop. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a politician. I'm a nurse who found out 3 months ago that her entire life was built on a lie. She paused. Let the words sink in. But I am Danny Mitchell's daughter, and I know what he believed. He believed that ordinary people could stand up against corruption. He believed that truth was more powerful than fear. And he believed that if enough good people worked together, they could change the world. Her voice strengthened. I don't know if he was right, but I'm willing to find out. I'm willing to fight. I'm willing to risk everything to finish what he started. She looked around the table, meeting each person's eyes in turn. The question is, are you? Silence. Then the silver-haired woman stood. I've been waiting 28 years for someone to ask me that question. She extended her hand. I'm in. The federal prosecutor stood next. So am I. One by one they rose, shaking Grace's hand, pledging their support. By the end of the night, Grace had an army. A small one, but an army nonetheless. And for the first time since this nightmare began, she felt like she might actually win. 1 year later, everything had changed. Grace stood before a crowd of 300 people. Behind her, a banner read, Mitchell Foundation Breaking the Cycle. She wasn't a nurse anymore. She was something more. Thank you all for being here today, she said into the microphone. 1 year ago, I stood in a courtroom and watched the man who murdered my father be sentenced to life in prison. I thought that was the end of my story. I was wrong. The crowd was silent, hanging on every word. My father spent his life fighting corruption, fighting people who thought they were above the law. He died before he could see his mission completed. But he planted seeds. Seeds that grew in the dark. Seeds that were tended by brave men and women who never forgot what he stood for. Grace's voice rose. Today, those seeds are bearing fruit. In the past year, the Mitchell Foundation has helped expose 14 corrupt officials. We've provided legal support to 67 whistleblowers. We've established a safe haven for families fleeing organized crime. She paused. Let the numbers sink in. But we're just getting started. The corruption my father fought against hasn't disappeared. It's evolved, adapted, found new ways to hide. And that means we have to evolve too. She looked out at the crowd, at the faces of people who had lost loved ones to violence, who had been silenced by fear, who had given up hope. I'm not going to promise you that we'll win. I'm not going to promise you that it will be easy, but I am going to promise you this: we will never stop fighting. We will never stop speaking the truth, and we will never let the people who destroyed our families escape justice. The crowd erupted in applause. Grace stepped back from the microphone, heart pounding, tears in her eyes. Hawk found her backstage. That was incredible, he said. I almost threw up 3 times. Hawk laughed. That's normal. Danny used to throw up before every big speech. Said it was the only way he could get the nerves out. Really? Really? Hawk put a hand on her shoulder. You're doing something amazing, Grace. Something your father only dreamed of. And you're doing it in a way that honors everything he believed. I couldn't do it without you. Yeah, you could. But I'm glad you don't have to. Viper appeared, leaning on her cane, a rare smile on her face. The mayor's office called. They want to meet with you next week. Something about a partnership with the police department. The police department? Grace shook her head. 6 months ago, half of them wanted me dead. 6 months ago, you hadn't exposed the chief of police for taking bribes from drug dealers. Viper's smile widened. Amazing how quickly people change their tune when you've got evidence of their crimes. What about the other thing? The journalist. She's ready to publish. Tomorrow morning, front page. Every detail of how Sergei Petrov built his empire. Every cop he bought. Every politician he controlled. Every murder he ordered. Grace felt a weight lift from her shoulders. 28 years of secrets. Finally seeing the light of day. My mother, she said. I need to see her, before the story breaks. Go. Viper nodded. We'll handle things here. Grace drove to Sunrise Memory Care. The facility had changed in the past year. New staff, new security, new protocols, all funded by the Mitchell Foundation. Helen Mitchell would spend her remaining years in comfort and safety. That was one promise Grace had kept. She found her mother in the garden, sitting in her wheelchair, staring at the roses. Mom. Helen turned. Today was a good day. Grace could see it in her eyes. Grace. Helen smiled. My beautiful girl, you look tired. I've been busy. Saving the world. Grace laughed. Something like that. She sat beside her mother, took her hand. I came to tell you something, Mom. Tomorrow, a story is going to be published. About Sergei Petrov. About everything he did. About everyone who helped him. Helen's hand tightened on hers. It's going to be hard to read. Hard to see all those names, all those crimes. But I wanted you to know before everyone else. I wanted you to hear it from me. Helen was quiet for a long moment. Then she spoke. Her voice clearer than Grace had heard in months. Your father would be so proud of you. Grace's throat tightened. You remember him? I remember everything today. Helen's eyes glistened. The way he laughed. The way he held you. The way he looked at me like I was the only woman in the world. Tears streamed down Grace's face. I loved him so much, Grace. More than I ever told him. More than I ever showed him. Helen's voice cracked. And when he died, I thought I would die too. The only thing that kept me going was you. Mom, no, let me finish. Helen squeezed her hand. I lied to you for 28 years. I told myself it was to protect you. But really it was to protect myself. I was afraid of the truth, afraid of the past, afraid of everything. She took a shaky breath. But you weren't afraid. When the truth came for you, you didn't run. You didn't hide. You stood up and fought, just like your father. Helen reached up, touched Grace's face. I'm so sorry for all the years I stole from you. All the memories of your father you should have had. All the truth you deserved to know. Mom, you saved my life. I shot a man who was trying to kill you. That's not the same thing. Helen shook her head. You saved yourself, Grace. You saved me. You saved everyone your father was trying to protect. Grace couldn't speak, could barely breathe. I don't have much time left. Helen's voice dropped to a whisper. The doctors don't say it, but I know. I can feel it. The fog is getting thicker. The memories are slipping away. Mom, don't. Listen to me. Helen's grip tightened. When I'm gone, I want you to remember something. Your father and I made a lot of mistakes. We lied. We hid. We let fear control us. But we also loved you. More than anything in this world. More than our own lives. Tears streamed down Helen's face. You are the best thing we ever did, Grace. The only thing that mattered in the end. And I know that wherever your father is, he's watching you. He's proud of you. He's cheering you on. Grace pulled her mother into a hug, held her tight, let the tears fall. I love you, Mom. I love you too, baby. Always, forever. They sat together until the sun began to set. Mother and daughter, connected by love and loss and 28 years of secrets finally laid bare. When Grace finally left, she felt different, lighter, freer, like something that had been broken for a very long time had finally begun to heal. The story broke the next morning. Front page of every major newspaper. Lead story on every news channel. Trending on every social media platform. The Petrov Files, how one crime family corrupted an entire city. By noon, 3 more politicians had resigned. 2 police captains had been arrested. And the FBI had announced a new task force dedicated to pursuing the remaining members of the Petrov organization. Grace watched the coverage from the Mitchell Foundation headquarters, surrounded by the people who had made it all possible. Hawk, Viper, Bull, the 17 members of her father's network, and dozens of new recruits who had joined the cause over the past year. You did it, Hawk said quietly. You actually did it. We did it. Grace shook her head. All of us. Together. But you led us. You gave us hope. You made us believe we could actually win. We haven't won yet. There's still so much work to do. There always will be. Viper limped over, her cane tapping against the floor. That's the thing about fighting corruption. It never really ends. You just keep pushing, keep fighting, keep hoping. That sounds exhausting. It is. Viper smiled. But it's also worth it. Every person we save, every criminal we expose, every family we protect. It matters. All of it. Grace looked around the room, at these people who had become her family, her army, her purpose. I have something to say, she announced. The room fell silent. 1 year ago, I was a nurse. I worked night shifts in an emergency room. I paid my bills. I visited my mother on weekends. I had a quiet, ordinary life. She paused. Then a man on a motorcycle told me my entire life was a lie. He told me my father was a hero. And he told me that the people who killed him were coming for me. Her voice strengthened. I could have run. I could have hidden. I could have let someone else fight this battle. But I didn't, because I realized something that night, something my father knew all along. She looked at Hawk, at Viper, at Bull, at every person who had stood beside her. There are some things worth fighting for, some things worth dying for, and if we don't fight for them, no one will. She took a breath. My father planted seeds 28 years ago. He planted them in all of you, and now finally those seeds are blooming. Not because of anything I did, but because you believed. You hoped. You refused to give up. Tears glistened in her eyes. I don't know what the future holds. I don't know if we'll win. I don't know if I'll live to see the world my father dreamed of. But I know this: as long as I'm breathing, I will never stop fighting. I will never stop speaking the truth, and I will never let my father's sacrifice be forgotten. She raised her coffee mug. The room did the same. To Danny Mitchell, to everyone who loved him, to everyone who carries his legacy forward. To Danny, the room echoed. And in that moment, surrounded by the family she'd found in the most unlikely of places, Grace Mitchell finally understood what her father had known all along. Courage wasn't the absence of fear. It was being terrified and moving forward anyway. That evening, Grace stood alone at her father's grave. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson. "Hey, Dad," she said softly. "It's been a year now. Can you believe it? A year since I found out who you really were, who I really was." She knelt, placed fresh flowers at the base of the headstone. "The story came out today. Everything you gathered, everything you died for. The whole world knows now. About Sergei, about Judas, about all of it." She traced her fingers over his name. "Mom's doing okay. Some days she remembers. Some days she doesn't. But she's safe. She's loved. That's what matters." A bird sang somewhere in the distance. "Hawk's still driving me crazy. Viper's still bossing everyone around. Bull's still the biggest softy I've ever met." She laughed softly. "You'd love them, Dad. All of them. They're exactly the kind of people you would have fought beside." The wind picked up, rustling through the trees. "I'm not going to lie. It's been hard. Harder than I ever imagined. There are days when I want to give up. Days when I wonder if any of it matters. Days when I miss you so much it feels like my heart is breaking." Her voice cracked. "But then, I think about what you wrote in that letter. Be brave. Be strong. Be better than I was." She stood, looked at the headstone one last time. "I'm trying, Dad. Every day I'm trying. And I think I'm finally starting to understand what you meant." She pulled the letter from her pocket, the one she'd read 1,000 times, the one she carried everywhere. "You told me to choose peace. For a long time I didn't know what that meant. I thought peace meant giving up, walking away, letting the bad guys win." She shook her head. "But now I know. Peace isn't passive. Peace is something you fight for, something you build, something you protect with everything you have." She kissed her fingers, pressed them against the cold stone. "I'm going to keep building, Dad. For you, for Mom, for everyone the Petrovs destroyed, for everyone who's still fighting in the darkness." She stepped back, straightened her shoulders. "My name is Grace Mitchell. I am the daughter of Danny Mitchell, and I will spend the rest of my life fighting for the world he believed in." She turned, walked toward the gate. Hawk was waiting, leaning against his motorcycle, just like always. "Ready?" he asked. Grace looked back at her father's grave one last time. Then she smiled. Yeah, I'm ready. She climbed onto the back of the motorcycle. They roared off into the sunset, toward the city, toward the future, toward whatever came next. And Grace Mitchell, daughter of a hero leader of an army protector of the innocent, knew with absolute certainty that her father's legacy would live forever. Not in the stones that marked his grave, not in the stories that told his deeds, but in the hearts of everyone who refused to let the darkness win. Danny Mitchell had planted seeds 28 years ago. His daughter was harvesting the garden, and the harvest had only just begun. I hope you enjoyed this story. Please share your favorite part in the comments and tell me which city you're watching from. Your support means the world to me. Until next time, take care of yourselves and the people you love. And remember, courage isn't the absence of fear. It's being afraid and moving forward anyway.